Conflict, painful, destructive, and all too prevalent in this age of intellect. From ancient times comes the moral concept of forgiveness. But why does this virtue so elude us? Can we begin to understand its essence? Is there a path toward forgiveness for humankind to follow? Please join us in this search. A little girl in pigtails walked in step with federal marshals to her first day of school. Robert Coles was simply trying to reach a meeting, and what he saw that angry day altered his life. Now a child psychiatrist, Harvard professor, author, Coles made known the story of Ruby Bridges.
Ruby Bridges was a 6-year-old girl who initiated school desegregation in New Orleans in the autumn of 1960. I saw this girl go through the first mob that she experienced on the day that the schools were desegregated. What I saw there in New Orleans changed my life. The long and short of the story of Ruby Bridges is that after months of going to school all by herself in a building that was totally boycotted by the white population, after going through mobs to get into school in the morning and mobs to get out of school in the afternoon, after being escorted to school by federal marshals, this little girl nevertheless persisted to get her first grade education. Ruby, on a particular morning, had spent some time hesitating before she went into the school building, had turned and said something to the people who were threatening her, as they did every morning. And I found out what this little girl had done. She had stopped to pray for people who wanted to kill her. And I had a conversation with her in her home that evening in which she told me what she had said in that prayer. She said to God, whom she was speaking to, "Please, God, try to forgive these people because they don't know what they're doing." This is not the kind of thought that someone like me is trained to expect from anyone, certainly from a little girl, and this kind of forgiveness was in her. A remarkable story and a remarkable thing for someone like me to hear.
Today, Ruby Bridges discusses her story with students around the country. Its lessons in forgiveness still resonate.
My mother always said to me, always say your prayers, and we did. You know, we'd say our prayers at night, before we went to bed, before we ate, that sort of thing. And I remember having nightmares, and I would get up and go to my mother's room, and she would say, "Well, did you say your prayers?" And I would say no, and she'd say, "Well, that's why you had the nightmare. Go back and get on your knees." And I would do that. And once I did that, I was fine. It would go away. And, you know, I don't know, maybe that's because I was 6, but it worked for me. And she would say to me, "Whenever you're afraid and I'm not with you, remember, say your prayers." And that's what I would do all the time.
I was very surprised when I heard Ruby say this. In fact, I questioned her rather closely. I said, "Why would you want to forgive these people, given all the threats that you're hearing from them?" And she looked at me, and I'll never forget this. She said, "Well, don't you think they need forgiveness?" Which is not the way my mind is trained to work, because what I was trying to figure out is what her psychological defenses were like and what she was trying to accomplish psychiatrically by saying this.
Archbishop Desmond Tutu has guided the nation of South Africa and its people through the ruins of apartheid.
Without the support of prayer, without the support of concern, our awesome task will be utterly impossible.
We struggled against one another. Now we are reconciled to struggle for one another.
The quiet of his voice and the power of his words has imbued communities of people from Oslo to Cape Town to share his search for truth and reconciliation.
If we were infallible, if we didn't make mistakes, then there would be no need for forgiveness, because forgiveness is how we deal with the things that we do most naturally, almost always. Making mistakes, hurting others, and so forth. And forgiveness is how you deal effectively with all of that. And I myself would say it is being given the opportunity of making a new beginning.
I, Jimmy Carter, do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute
that I will faithfully execute
the office of President of the United States
the office of President of the United States
Jimmy and Rosalind exemplify a vision, linking charitable deeds to an abiding spiritual nature. The Carters were now citizens of the world and neighbors to the needy. With Habitat for Humanity, they built affordable and safe housing. By establishing the Carter Center, they gave their mission a home where dreams become reality, whether aiding the children of Atlanta or searching for democratic freedoms. Dreams of peace and reconciliation witnessed with the landmark signing of the Mideast Treaty 2 decades ago.
When I first started running for president, I had many people ask me, "Who are you? What do you stand for?" Well, I'm an American, I'm a farmer, a Baptist, and now I'm a former president. That has not changed, but like everyone else, I learned a lot with passing years. I've had a lot of sometimes dramatic experiences, sometimes interesting experiences, and they have shaped really who I am and what I believe.
From 15th century Renaissance to the modern day, scientific discoveries have revolutionized the world around us. So we may view faraway lands, peer into the unknown, and look at life up close. Can science explore what is so inherently and intensely personal as forgiveness? We seek answers from individuals and families in all types of distress, exploring psychological relationships among chimpanzees or examining the workings of the human brain. We look at global conflicts pitting man against brother, where cries for humanity ring out.
Go forward in the light of truth.
Where a young girl's plea harkens back to Ruby's admonition of, don't you think they need forgiveness?
I think forgiveness is an aspect of our humanity. I think a lot of us are brought up in such a way that we know that if we don't somehow forgive, that whatever it is that's ailing us or troubling us or angering us or enraging us or shaming us or getting us in one way or another worked up is going to live longer without the forgiving side, whether we have to forgive ourselves or forgive others.
Well, forgiveness is one of the most difficult things for a human being to do. But I think it means to look at some slight or suspected slight against yourself, to put yourself in the position of the other person, and to wipe away in your own mind any sort of resentment or antagonism toward the other person. And I would say, in addition, to let the other person know that everything is perfectly friendly and normal between you and that person.
To forgive is actually to sort of set yourself free. That it does yourself no good to hate. Hate really, really can destroy a person and yourself. And that is what I think taught me about forgiveness. And so I try to do that.
Forgiveness, reconciliation are not just ethereal, spiritual, otherworldly activities. They have to do with the real world. They are realpolitik. Because in a very real sense, without forgiveness, there is no future.